They said no one survives a night alone in the sands. But when my hiking partner drove off and left me for dead, I didn't just survive, I turned the tables on the person I trusted most. I should have known something was wrong when Mark insisted on detouring off the trail. The sun was sinking fast, and the map he handed me looked hastily drawn. "Trust me," he said, stowing it in his backpack. "I've done this route before." By 6 p.m., my water was half gone and the temperature had dropped 30 degrees. I asked Mark for his spare bottle. He smiled, clinked his empty flask under my nose, and walked away without a word. Darkness fell like a curtain. The silence was absolute, broken only by the hiss of sand shifting under my boots. I screamed his name until my throat burned. There was no answer, just the whine of a lone coyote in the distance. When the moon rose, I realized how truly alone I was. My cell phone had no signal. My flashlight flickered its last beam. Hypothermia set in fast. Each shiver felt like shards of glass sliding through my skin. Somewhere between conscious and delirious, I remembered my grandfather's stories about desert survival. "In the deepest night," he said, "you find your true self, or you vanish forever." I chose not to vanish. First, I gathered the withered sage bushes into a rough shelter against the wind. I jammed my hiking poles into the ground like makeshift supports, draped my jacket over the frame, and crawled inside. My knees were raw from crawling, my lips cracked from thirst, but inside that cocoon, I felt a spark. A stubborn refusal to be a statistic. I rationed my water by licking the condensation on the plastic bottleneck. I pressed my forehead to the earth, listening for any sign of life. A distant motor, the flap of an owl's wings, human voices, anything. Nothing. At Tiao. Dawn, I forced myself up. My legs wobbled like newborn foals, but I had to move. I oriented myself by the sun, staggered toward the ridge where Mark had parked our car. With each step, my rage burned hotter than any desert sun. How dare he betray me like this? 5 hours. Later, delirium crept back. My tongue felt glued to the roof of my mouth. But then, an engine roar. I turned to see Mark's truck barreling toward me, dust trailing behind like an angry comet. He slammed on the brakes 50 feet away, rolled down the window, and stared. "Thought you were gone," he breathed. I realized then, I was far from gone. I staggered forward. "Where's my water?" I rasped. He fumbled a bottle out of the glove compartment. As I gulped it down, he revved the engine. "Get in," he said unevenly. I climbed in, each movement burning more than the sun. As we sped down the dirt road, I peered at him in the rearview mirror. His face was pale, guilty, frightened even. "I thought you'd be glad I waited until sunrise," he stammered. "We needed to avoid that ranger patrol." My mind raced. He'd faked that story. The ranger station stood in the opposite direction. His plan had been to leave me stranded and claim I'd run off. Then he'd hike out, tell people I'd vanished, and pocket my insurance payout. As he spoke, I didn't interrupt. I let him unravel. Inside me, something cold and sharp snapped into place. I would not be his victim. When we reached the main road, his cell phone rang. I watched his face drain of hope as I took his phone from his hand and rejected the call. Then I dialed 911. "Highway 47 near mile marker 22, I said clearly. "I was abandoned in the desert by my partner. He's under the influence, please send help." Mark lunged for the phone, but I twisted away. "I'll explain everything to the police," I told him. 20 minutes later, sheriff's deputies arrived. They cuffed Mark while I collapsed onto the back of an ambulance, the weight of the past 24 hours crashing down. In the hospital, hypothermia treatment saved my life. But as soon as I could speak, I gave a full statement. Mark's betrayal wasn't just criminal. It was personal, visceral, a crime of pure selfishness. At the trial 3 months later, he pleaded guilty to reckless endangerment, attempted fraud, and kidnapping. The judge gave him 5 years behind bars. When the gavel fell, I felt a hollow victory. He would pay, but he would still carry my trust as a lifelong debt. Today, 1 year later, I stand atop that same ridge, the horizon stretching, wide under a cloudless sky. I've launched Desert Survivors, a nonprofit training at-risk youth in wilderness skills and self-reliance. I teach them that betrayal can break you, or it can become the crucible in which you forge unshakable strength. So, how far would you go to survive and to fight back? If you've ever faced a betrayal that nearly destroyed you, share your story in the comments and subscribe for more unbelievable true tales that prove we're all stronger than we think.